Madam President, you remember the day, you'll never forget it, January 6th. Here we were in this chamber in the process of voting the Electoral College votes. It was a pretty solemn occasion because this happens once every 4 years, and we have documents coming from the states telling us what happened in the election of last year for President of the United States. It's our job to make sure that those reports are documented and that the ordinary process of the democracy proceeds. This January 6th was not an ordinary day by any means. Before we set about our task here in the Senate and the House, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, held a rally claiming that, in fact, he didn't lose the election, that he won the last election. And he alleged all sorts of fraud and misconduct on the part of Democrats and others that resulted in this faulty report that somehow or another he'd lost the election. Well, his crowd got so fired up that they decided to march on the Capitol as we were counting the Electoral College ballots. I can remember it well. Vice President Pence was sitting where you are, Madam President. We were going through the regular process, and it was a little after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. All of a sudden, that door opened over there, and people came in suits I'd never seen before, and literally yanked the vice president off the podium and pulled him out that door. It was only a minute or two later that a member of the Capitol Police, the men and women who guard us and guard the visitors to this Capitol, a member of the Capitol Police stood where you're sitting and reported to us that there was a demonstration outside and that we should remain in this chamber, in this Senate chamber, because they were going to make it a safe room in the Capitol. At that time, I noticed staff people were being brought in and lined up along the back of the room itself. It wasn't 10 minutes later till the same member of the Capitol Police stood up and said, change in plans, everybody leave as quickly as possible. And we all did, filing out toward the back of the room. Every member of the Senate, luckily the parliamentarian or some other office, decided to grab the boxes with the Electoral College votes in them to preserve this important piece of history from possible mob action. As we were filing out of the Capitol, you couldn't help but look out the window and see the mobs coming on the Capitol, converging on the Capitol, carrying Trump signs. We went to a safe location and waited it out, and later that evening resumed our activities on the floor of the Senate, counted the votes, and made it official, with the Vice President present. It was an important part of history, and you would think that that would be enough of an embarrassment to President Donald Trump that he would drop his claims that the election was stolen. He's done just the opposite. He's intensified these false, malicious claims that somehow or another the vote was rigged or stolen or whatever his term might be, a fraud on the public, despite clear evidence to the contrary. And he pointed to a number of states that he said proved his point, where he just could not have lost. Donald Trump could not have lost these states. So clearly, he argues, something happened there that was criminal or wrong, and an investigation would show it. Well, one of those states was Arizona. Joe Biden carried Arizona by roughly 10,500 votes. 45,000 of those votes came from Maricopa County, so it was obviously crucial to his win. And so the Republicans in Arizona decided they were going to zero in on Maricopa County and prove once and for all that Donald Trump didn't lose that county by 45,000 votes. Well, they went to great lengths to do it. First, they gathered all their right-wing groups and Trump's defenders and raised $5.7 million in donations. Then they hired a group with the unlikely name of, I'm looking for it here, something to do with ninjas. I'm sure it'll pop up. And this group, cyber ninjas. This group had no experience analyzing an election, and yet they turned over all the ballots from Maricopa County to them to recount. Well, they pursued many bizarre theories, one of which I think was promulgated by the ever-reliable Rudy Giuliani, that somehow or another there were bamboo fibers found in these election ballots, and those are an indication of wrongdoing and can track the conspiracy, maybe even to international sources. The cyber ninjas rolled up their sleeves, pulled in the boxes of ballots, and started the count. They were determined to prove once and for all that the result that was announced, that Biden carried the county by 45,000 votes, was wrong. And they proved it. Through all their hard work and all the money that was spent, it turns out the draft report from the company Cyber Ninjas found that there were 99 additional votes for Joe Biden rather than the number that was presented by the authorities, and 261 fewer votes for Donald Trump in Maricopa County. Just the opposite of what they predicted. Well, you would think that President Trump would at least be quiet, or maybe even acknowledge that he was wrong. Come on, you remember him. Here's what he said in a statement after the review was announced. He said, "The review has uncovered significant and undeniable evidence of fraud. Until we know how and why this happened, our elections will never be secure." Madam President, he just won't quit. And the problem, of course, is that so many Americans are buying it, primarily Republicans, increasing their numbers, believing his big lie about the election being stolen from him. God forbid this man could lose an election. Who would ever dream of that? He can't think of the possibility. And they're joining him in a chorus, despite hard evidence that proves time and time and time again that he lost. It was a spirited election. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and when it was all over, the American people made their choice. They accepted the reality of change. Now it's time for Donald Trump and his followers to do the same. I don't know if the Cyber Ninja Turtles or whoever they are going to go at it again, some other state, pick another state to do some investigation. More power to them. They're building up the majority for Joe Biden, just the opposite of what was predicted.